evening. My name is Andrea. Welcome to the Sylvia Winslow Gallery at the Madaranka Museum. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors for tonight's show, Judy Fair-Spalding, Daniel Kuss, dentist, Aletha Benson, physical therapy, and Arrowhead Mobile Home Park. Tonight's show is Linda Ortiz, Visions and Voices. And you'll see that there's some pretty jazzy things going on here. And I'd also like to thank Tony Wilkins for her expert lining up of all of these little pictures. She did an excellent job. Okay, Linda? Members also get a 10% discount on tonight's purchases.
Well, I'm honored to be here. Thank you all for coming. I actually tried for 3 years in a row to get accepted to be here, so I'm so happy to be here and share my work with you. And it's a great honor, and I also want to compliment all of the volunteers. It's been so professionally run. Both my husband and I have been very impressed with the great job you do here, so thank you very much. I want to start off first of all with the two questions I always get asked first. Is your last name really Ortiz? And you don't look Native American. So, yes, my maiden name is Ortiz. And I was born in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm a 7th generation Santa Fean. And if you haven't been to Santa Fe has a unique situation in the city. It's a blend of the Anglo-American, Hispanic, Spanish culture, and Native American. And that's who I am, and that's all part of what I'm all about, and that's where this inspiration comes from. I sort of came to paper making through the back door. At first I was a fiber artist and did fiber sculptures and weavings, and then I did pottery. Then I went on to calligraphy, and I wanted to do a book completely from scratch and make the paper, do the binding, and do the calligraphy. So I took a paper making class and I fell in love. And that's the end of all my calligraphy and everything else. So as I was, when I first started making paper, it was always flat, and it was all about, what's in the pulp and the colors, and it was just the beauty of the paper. But as a kid growing up, I loved the museums that had all the Native American clothing in it. And I sort of fantasized about who wore that and where they come from and who made it for them and what was the occasion. And so, we can't own any of those things, and rightfully so. So one day I was making paper and I went, it was like one of those moments, I could make fantasy pieces of Native American clothing. And so here we are at Visions and Voices, and that's what it's all about. So I'm going to take a little drink of water here first. First I'm going to talk a little bit about the process, because I've had some questions already. And then I'll show you some other pieces and sort of explain what's in them, so then you can look at these pieces and understand how I got there. Oh, yeah, so can we have the lights off?
He's slacking off.
First of all, handmade paper can be made from lots of different things. Mostly my paper is made out of cotton, linen, and abaca. And I sort of make the paper pulp like I cook, a little this, a little that. So I don't have formula. And
What's abaca?
abaca is a plant fiber. And you have to beat it and cook it down. And it's an Asian plant fiber. And it's real strong, so it makes really strong paper. And that's what I like about it. The cotton, of course, is soft. The linen gives it a harder surface. So if I'm going to be painting a lot on it, then I usually put more linen in it. But you can make paper out of lots of things. In India, they make it out of elephant dung. And that's a paper you never can forget. In Alabama, they make it out of mule dung. So it's very strong, stubborn paper. But my paper is just really pretty ordinary, and I like to add lots of little things to it. So you'll see that none of the paper really looks alike. They're all a little bit different. So first of all, the fibers are cut up to a very, see if I can use this fancy paper. Cut up. I actually, sometimes I cut it up with scissors. It sort of just depends. A lot of times I will buy cotton lintners from the paper mill in Oakland and tear it all up and use the paper that way. It's an actual paper mill, and they sell these big sheets of cotton. They call them lintners, but it's for making paper. And then the paper is ground up. I have a big bucket here that my husband made that has a blade in it, and it's ground up with water, and it comes out into this pulpy cotton ball-like, or oatmeal is what I like to say when I'm teaching it. When you feel it, it sort of feels like oatmeal. And then here I'm using what's called a mold and a decal. The thing here in the center, that's the mold, and then there's a piece of wood on the outside, and that's the decal. And that's how you get a deckled edge on a piece of paper. Really fine stationery, maybe you've noticed, sometimes it'll say deckled edge. Well, that's how they form it, by having this piece of wood that just looks like a frame, and when you lift it up, it lifts up the fibers of the pulp, so you get that feathery edge. If you didn't use the decal, then it would be real straight. So here I am dipping the mold and decal into the vat. So you can see this is all white, and here's some colored pulp over here that I won't be. So sometimes I use white and sometimes you use color. So now it's being cooched onto my vacuum table. That's just a fancy paper making word for putting it on the table. Oh, I forgot to tell you up here before I did this, the other paper making term is hogging the slurry, and that means stirring it. So, and here is the piece of paper on the mold, and see the decal is over here in the other hand. So then I start layering the pieces in whatever shape I'm going to make, and then I turn on my vacuum table, and then I have a piece of paper in the shape that I choose. So from there, so as you can see, this one is white. So a lot of times I'll make just a white sheet, because I'm not really sure about what color I want to do yet, and then I'll paint. But sometimes, like in this one, this is 3 different colors. This is a color of pulp by itself. This is a blue pulp, and this was a yellow. And then I painted here, and this is a different color pulp. And this is here, this is dressed for Ocean Song. And this is mostly painted, except you can see here, these are the actual beads, and these are the shells that I've added. But the paper was white, and then I painted this one color, and then the fringe a different color.
What kind of paint do you use on it?
Just acrylic, and sometimes I use watercolors. And sometimes I'll put the paint on and then take a cloth and sort of dab it off because it looks too strong. And this one is, whoops, I keep pushing the wrong one, sorry. So this one is all the same color pulp, you can see. But now I'm starting to use my photo transfers. So this was a design that I saw somewhere, and I have a photo of it. And this is another one that was in a magazine. And then I soak the photo in this stuff called Wonder Wash. And it makes the emulsion kind of float up. And then I put it on my handmade paper, and so then it transfers the image. And I like it because it doesn't give a really perfect image, so it looks old and fuzzy, and that's what I liked about it. And then that was horsehair that I had on there too. This also is more photo transfer. This actually was wrapping paper. And so I took it down to Kinko's and had a big photo made out of it. And then transferred the design onto the cradle board. And that's a gourd head up in there, and the willow branches, and then I add bones and things to it too. This has some more photo transfers in 2 different colors of pulp. So the yellow was one color of pulp, and then I made the fringe a different color. And these are different photo transfers once again. There's that same image, I love that one a lot. And then, I don't think you can see very well, but these are the Indian head nickels that I put on there. And then there's some horsehair with the bird beads. And then the moccasins, I started doing again. I did them quite a while ago, and they're a lot of work, but so many people like them, I've started doing them again. And this is all paint. I just paint the design on it. And I actually sew them together like you would, you know, a regular moccasin. And then scrunch them up. And then these are real wonderful fantasies for me to think about the journey that they went on and where they went. And was it a happy journey? Was it hard? Was it cold? And this is the medicine pouch that's here also. And this is a photo transfer in here. This is of newspaper rock. And then I put other fun things in here that to me are symbolic of different thoughts and feelings I sort of put in with the medicine pouch, sort of healing wishes. And this was painted, and then I added the beads in here. So here's newspaper rock again as the background, and that's also a photo transfer. And then this is a smaller photo transfer to on the shirt itself. Those are fun to do. Now, also in handmade paper, I do cast paper. So this is using the mold and decal, all the pieces that I have here. But cast paper is when you push pulp down into a mold, sort of like you would with clay. So this is, it has depth and it's quite large. I can't remember the dimension. And, whoops. And this is paper clay right here. That's fun to work with. And I put little sticks in there to try and make it look like Mesa Verde. And then, of course, I love the petroglyphs. That's why I love this museum. And here's some more cast paper. I made a mold out of some old moccasins that I had, and then I pressed the pulp into it and glued the 2 halves together, and then make the moccasin pieces. And here's some more cast pieces. These are big bowls that I did, and then add the ribbons and things at the bottom. And this is the bowls were actually black, and then I painted on top of them. Here's some more cast pieces that I call willow windows, and they were pressed into just like a little box, and then that's 2 different colors of pulp. And here's another one like the Rainbow Warrior, and this was all one color pulp. And then I thought that these should be darker, so I painted those with watercolor. And there's some interesting beads along here. And this is a really nice piece of beadwork that I bought from a Native American. And more beadwork. I buy a lot of my beadwork when I go back home to Santa Fe from some of the traders. They see me coming and they know. And this is another dress. This is dress for walking cloud. And this was all one color pulp. This is a separate piece here that's sewn here. So there's this top, and then this was the other big piece of paper. I had to make it long enough so that this fringe is actually part of this body. Oftentimes, I just add the fringe on the sides like I did here, but this piece I made really big so I could do the fringe also. And then a lot of times I like to add the pouches, little medicine pouches or secret pouches, and the beadwork. And these are the burden beads again. These little round discs, I don't remember if I have them on any of these pieces, but they're actually ostrich egg shell. And the women in Africa make them by chewing like that, around like that with their teeth, and then they drill a hole in them. So they're all irregular shapes. And I've seen in books pictures of the women who do it and you know what their teeth look like. And this is Red Storm's Journey. Now on this piece, the rug in the back, this is all different colors of pulp. So the yellow was yellow pulp, this was red, that was black, and this was time consuming. And then on this piece too, you can see the main part of the pants is white, but this was all different colors of pulp. And so is this. And then I have the horsehair, and there's some ermine tails that people don't like me to put on anymore.
What size is that?
This one is, it's about the same size as the dress for Ocean Song, so it's larger.
Wait, is there a front and a back to the clothing?
No, they're just flat. When I make them, you mean? Oh, yeah. Mhm.
So they have, okay.
Right, yeah, there's a front and back.
When you use a different color pulp, is it inset at the time
Right.
that it's all vacuumed?
While it's all wet.
Yeah.
It all has to be the same wetness in order for it to become one, because then they sort of interweave, the fibers interweave.
So do you have to cut out a place and then insert the colors that you want? Or
No,
is it-
these were laid on top. My husband made some templates for me of like diamond shapes and things like that. So I would put that on top of the mold and decal and put it through the colored pulp. And then I take the template off, and then I've got this nice little diamond shape. Then I would put that onto the handmade paper
Yes, it's still wet.
as it's still wet and before it's been vacuumed. This is similar to the piece that's behind the screen, the cake piece. I don't do too many of these anymore because I was sort of like crazy when I was doing them. And I'm not so crazy anymore, honestly. But each one of these feathers is hand cast. What was I thinking? I don't know. But I just had this image in mind, and actually it was in memory of my brother who passed away, and he was in the Air Force. It's called My Brother the Eagle. So, although all of them were hand cast, they were all white, and then I painted each one in gradations of color to go on up. Yeah, it's a pretty piece though. And here's the shaman's vest that's here in the show. And this is a multi-layered piece because underneath, if you look carefully, there are some, whoops, clothing transfers. Uh-oh, I really messed it up now, huh? Yeah. I'll just at the end anyway. So just go real fast. Okay, so here's the shaman's vest, and I was trying to push this one. But there's some images of Native American chiefs' faces. There's one up in here that you can see. And then I painted over it, and then I put the petroglyphs on top. And, you know, sometimes I just get like that. I don't like the way something looks, and so I just keep working with it. Oh, I did it again. That must be over. No, there should be one more. I'm sorry.
I do that too, probably.
Oh, there was supposed to be spirit out there, no? I guess I don't think it was. Oh, okay. Well, there was one last piece on there that it was a sculptural piece of a spirit elder, and his arms are out like that, and it's made out of the sticks. I did a lot of pieces with the sticks, and then it has a paper clay face and some copper feathers. And so I wanted to end with him because he's sort of the spirit elder, and I sort of get the visions and voices from all of these sort of fantasy people in my head and in my inspiration, and I hope you enjoy it. Anybody have any more questions?
I do. How long does it take you to make any particular one? I mean, like, looking at these, I mean, how many hours and days?
Yeah, you know, I always am working on several pieces at a time, so it's sort of hard to say, because I never just work on one piece from start to finish. But I would say like Ocean Song Dress, something like that would probably take me from start to finish maybe 2 months. You know, from making the pulp, and doing the shape, and adding all of the adornments to it.
Gosh.
So do you work through a process with several pieces at the same stage? So
No, they're sort of all at different stages. That way, if one's wet, then I go on to the one that I just worked on a couple of days ago, and it's dry, and then I, you know, cut the fringe.
And you don't get bored, no?
Right.
Does any of your inspiration come from actual pieces in museums or collections?
Well, I have lots of books, and I do look at them, but I never try to duplicate any of them because it would not be right. And that's why all of them have a little touch of fantasy that would never actually ever be in one of those museum pieces. But that's another reason why they're all framed in plexi, because I want them to have that museum feel, except for these little babies. But
It would be fascinating if you put a little piece with your fantasy, you know, along with...
Oh, a little description.
Yeah,
People.
of what was in your mind as you created this piece.
People have said that before, but you know, I sort of want it to be your fantasy too, and your vision, and you have your own voices about the pieces, and so that's why I've sort of resisted doing that.
With the process, you talk about vacuuming. Is it a special kind of vacuum, or how do you?
It's a vacuum table that paper makers use, and it's actually a portable one. And real paper makers, big studios, they've got a big permanent table, and it has all of these tubes that go underneath the table, and there's little holes that, you know, go into the tubes. Then you put the pulp on, and then you cover it with a big sheet of plastic, and then you turn on the motor, and that creates a vacuum. So the water has nowhere to go but down the little tubes and into a tank. And so that's what mine is, only it's modified because I have a big sheet of plexiglass and then tubing that I put on top of the plexiglass that has little holes in it. So I put my pulp on there, and then I put the big piece of plastic on top, and the tubing goes into a pressure tank when I turn on the motor, the little generator thing. But I love that because, you know, you don't always use your vacuum table, so I can take it apart and put it away, and then take it out again, because, you know, they take a lot of room. So.
Can you ever sun dry or air dry the paper?
Oh yeah, in the summer I do a lot of that. But if I'm in a hurry for something, and the really big pieces take a long time to dry, and if you're not careful, they'll curl in funny ways too.
Like that Madison dress, the photo transfer, it seems like there's a lot of different photos. How do you?
Oh, yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I forgot to talk about it. I did a collage of all Native American women's faces and children, and then I did a photo of that, and then I did the photo transfer. So I have a big collage, kind of in the shape of the skirt. And the top piece up here was actually a big poster that I had gotten and did a photo of it. And so the photo transfer is really fun.
Tell me about the fringe. Is the fringe handmade paper also?
Oh yeah.
And and you cut it?
I know.
Wow.
Each crazy. Each piece. Yeah. Well, I have to confess, on Ocean Song, I have discovered the joys of paper shredders. And so I put the piece through, and then I quickly, press reverse so I can pull it back out, so it still has a piece that's not cut. And then but but then I still cut it because, you know, the strips are too wide, so, but it cuts my cutting time in half.
Very clever.
That's amazing.
Are your pieces hand sewn?
Yes, and my husband sews the pieces onto the foam core.
Oh, wow.
We have the plexiglass boxes made in San Francisco, and then he puts the foam core on the stretcher board and then sews the pieces on.
I was at a paper maker's studio where she used a garbage disposal
Right.
to make her paper.
Oh, really?
She just, yeah, she filled the garbage disposal with water and the, whatever she was using, and then that dumped into a bucket, and that was
Right.
all there was to it.
Yeah, and, you know, I started out with a big bar blender, you know, those great big blenders at bars. And, but when you want to make a huge quantity, I really need those big 5-gallon buckets. So yeah, there's all sorts of ways that you can blend that pulp up.
How do they do it with mule and elephant gum?
Very careful. Yeah, well, I'm not so sure about the elephant, but I know about the mule gum in Alabama. They very carefully select the biscuits, they call them. Because some of them have more fibers or, you know, more straw, whatever they were eating in them. And then they let them dry, and then they have to cook them. And in the book it says, be sure to do this outside. And then they have to add things like cotton pulp or some other fiber to it because it's not strong enough to completely stay
I don't
together.
think they'd have to get the smell.
The smell,
Yeah, I was just, that's all I guess for the cooking.
well, actually when it gets dried, it doesn't really smell.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
You mentioned a couple of times something about like rock newspaper or something that you had.
What is that?
I don't know what that is.
Newspaper rock is a petroglyph. Where is that? In Arizona.
It's a site.
Yeah, it's a site that has that particular, yes,
I see.
there, it's a fabulous one. All right, well, thank you so much for coming.